And there is definitely somewhere in here a threshold.
Liberame Domine, which decodes to mean extricate me, programmer. We might dream of people and places we had never seen as vividly as if we had seen them and actually known them.
Welcome back.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Floating Universe podcast.
There's an impression of transition, and then you're propelled into the next phase.
Now, if you don't mind, can we get on with your question?
Well, sir, I'm not sure I understand the distinction between reflexive and voluntary nerve impulses.
Very good. Since our lab work today is a demonstration of just that distinction, why don't we proceed?
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Float Universe podcast. Got a short and sweet one for you today with Jay Dyer of Jay's Analysis. Been a fan for years, as you'll hear on the podcast. Me just fanboy out. Couldn't really think too clearly because I'm looking at the screen thinking, oh, I'm talking to a real celebrity, at least in my world. So it was a pleasure to talk to Jay. I'm so thankful he finally came on. I've been asking him, I only asked him once, but he said, a couple of years ago, maybe in the future. So thank you, Jay, so much. I am a huge fan. I love your work. One of the few podcasts I consistently listen to. Haven't listened to a lot of podcasts in a while. I've been out of the content world, but I'm back, and I'm glad that Jay finally came on the podcast. He's an interesting human being with a lot to say on a lot of different subjects. So I wish I could have done this interview again, but like I said, it is what it is. And I hope you'll enjoy it. He's a great guy. He's an author, podcaster, and a fourth hour host of InfoWars. Hopefully they stick around a little bit longer. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this interview with Jay. We went into a whole bunch of different topics, including psychedelics and Orthodox Christianity. So very relevant to your interests on this podcast, at least. So again, thanks, Jay. It was a pleasure. I'm not necessarily a super fan, but I am a fan and consider you in my world a celebrity. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, why is Float talking so fast? And I'm working on the interrupting too. I noticed, and part of the interrupting is sometimes like with Dr. Narco Longo, I have to step in and hit one of his points before he goes down the road and hits 10 other points and I forget the first point. Or it's a kind of debate-ish, you have to kind of go back and forth. So I'm out of form. I get it. I've been through a lot these past few months, a lot of soul searching, but I'm back. Great podcast. Thanks again, Jay. And you are enlightened. Enjoy the podcast. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Float Universe podcast. I cannot believe who I'm sitting here talking to. I've been a huge fan of this person's work for, I don't know, since like 2017. And I've been a fan of his boss since before 9/11. So that's how far back I go in this little conspiracy world. But I just finished reading your book like a month ago too, by the way. So
oh, nice.
You know him from Esoteric Hollywood is the book. It's volumes 1 and 2, Sex, Cults, and Symbolism in Film. He's also the co-host, which I think is where I found you, of Hollywood Decoded. It's his own podcast, Jay's Analysis, as well as YouTube channel. And like I said, he's a frequent guest host on InfoWars' Fourth Hour. Please welcome Jay Dyer.
What's up, man? Glad to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Like I said, I've been a huge fan for years, and I've been listening to you, and I've been so close to becoming Orthodox over the past 2 years because of you and DPH. So thank you for everything that you do and all the entertainment, the movie reviews. They've been, like I said, years of entertainment, and a lot of people, not myself included, get their information from you. because you're one of the most well-read people I've ever encountered, especially in the world of conspiracy theory. So how did you get a job working for Alex Jones?
Well, technically, I don't work for Alex Jones. I just got offered the fourth hour position because Alex had seen my stuff a long time ago. I called in back in like 2006, I think, and I wrote some articles for InfoWars at that time. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 articles back in the day. But I was kind of not really putting out a lot of material on my own. So I ended up back then just kind of doing my own thing. And then I think eventually the audience grew to where Alex had seen me on other people's shows and had heard my name and that kind of stuff. So he was like, oh yeah, that guy. So I went on 4 years ago for the first time as a guest for, a full on guest segment. And then, Alex really liked the segment and, the opportunity was there. Do you want to host the fourth hour? I said, yeah, sure. So I've done that almost every Friday, most Fridays for the last 4 years. So it was a great honor. I still hope to continue doing it if InfoWars can stay there. But
that's why I wanted to lead with that, because the news is they just got 10 more days to kind of push that down the field a little bit longer till they can decide what they're going to do.
Yeah, it seems to be changing every day, so it's kind of up in the air. But yeah, I think best case scenario, Alex will, even if InfoWars comes to a halt, Alex will be back and he'll be doing, a podcast, and it'll be same old Alex no matter what.
Well, I was going to say they can take the big production away, but at the end of the day, it's just a microphone and a man, and a lot of research too. You can tell that. I can't imagine how much research you or the crew there does at InfoWars.
Yeah, I think that the worst part would be, a lot of people that work there are going to lose their jobs. A lot of really cool people who I've been able to meet and hang out with many times and be in studio with all them many times. So, Owen's great, Daria's great, all the crew's great, Harrison's great. So, Alex will, be able to continue chugging on. But again, the worst part is that, all those people would lose their jobs.
Yeah, just disbanding the whole crew there. But you're right. Just a man and a mic. And it's like I said, I've been on board with Alex since before 2001. I lost all my friends in 2001. How old are you?
I just already forgot. Hold on. What is it? 45?
Okay, I'm 42. Yeah, you've been in the game just as long, if not longer. Why did you decide to go down the road of conspiracy theory and Hollywood and the cult stuff as an academic?
I think it's two different trains of things were going on. On the one hand, I was interested in that stuff from movies I'd watched in high school that I really liked. I was always a movie buff, so I really enjoyed, Mel Gibson's conspiracy theory. I enjoyed movies like The Godfather that dealt with, the interplay of politics and organized crime, which is kind of conspiratorial. So I always found that fascinating, and that was one kind of avenue that I was interested in. And then at the same time, I was studying a lot of philosophy and worldviews and how people think and what are the things that cause a person to form their worldview and so forth. So I was studying what looked like two different things, but then as I got into grad work, it started overlapping where I was looking at things like geopolitics and espionage. And I realized that if you, question 9/11, that kind of stuff, if you're going down that road, you start to realize that, well, this plays into, geopolitics. So I started realizing a lot more of what we call conspiracy stuff actually overlaps with, espionage and spycraft and all of that. And I didn't initially think that had anything to do with Hollywood, but the more I was reading, the deeper I was going into a lot of these sources and what I was studying. It turns out all these worlds do overlap and intersect, and I just found all that fascinating. And so I just wrote on that topic more and more, just doing a blog and grad work. So it all just kind of coalesced.
Yeah, Esoteric Hollywood Volumes 1 and 2. Like I said, I just read that probably about a month ago. It's a great read. The thing is, with listening to all your podcasts and all your content over the years, I was familiar with a lot of it, but there was still that next layer of information. So I highly recommend people read that book because, like I said, I've been in this world myself quite a long time, and there's a lot of stuff in there. Exactly, they're there, right there. A great read. But like I said, I came across your stuff. I'm pretty sure I was doing Moon conspiracy stuff and Jay Widener and his Kubrick stuff. And I'm a huge Kubrick fan, and you overlapped a lot in that too. And so that's how you guys entered my world. And I've been, like I said, a huge follower for a long time. And it's been interesting too with my psychedelic journey. Have you ever used a float tank, by the way?
No,
Have
I
you
did
ever?
acid several times when I was younger, but I didn't do anything beyond that.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that too, because you say that it was basically a nightmare. Did you
Well,
want to get into
bad trip.
talk?
I had a bunch of other trips that weren't bad trips, but the first trip was a bad trip.
So would you say then all your uses combined are psychedelics, you think, overall a net good or a net bad, or they just kind of even out?
I think maybe in some extreme cases there might be, if somebody is a severe alcoholic and they have an addiction and they're pretty much going to drink themselves. I knew a guy like this who drank himself to death. I mean, if they're at kind of those kind of extreme situations, there might be a point where those kinds of things could help break them out of that, because I've heard there is some positives. But I think for the most part, no, I wouldn't think that there's much of a need or a use for these. And I'm not saying that to offend you if you're into that.
No, it's not.
I just,
I'm always asking. I'm always
yeah,
asking people what they think. I know what I've gotten out of them, which is basically a net even. I've got a lot of good out of them, but I think also a lot of distracting and
yeah. Yeah,
fear
I don't think
stuff.
overall. I mean, outside of those maybe extreme situations of people having really intense addictions or whatever, um, and even in that case, I wouldn't think that like the synthetic versions would necessarily be the best route. Maybe the purely natural
Mushrooms.
route if somebody had
Yeah.
like because again, I'm thinking of a guy I knew that could he have benefited? Maybe, because he drank himself to death. He was my high school friend. He may be a case like that, but overall, I would say no. I don't think those kinds of substances are really, really that beneficial. I think that it's kind of a replacement for real enlightenment, real authenticity that I think comes from the scriptures and the Orthodox sphere.
So in your non-bad experiences, did you have any good takeaways from any psychedelic experience that you could apply to your life, or basically it was like a hall of mirrors?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Nobody's ever asked that. Um, so I think maybe we tripped acid maybe 5 other times other than the bad trip. I don't remember anything substantial. I mean, I remember the trips; they were pretty vivid, but I don't remember anything like no big, big question issues being resolved, no big insights into solving the world or anything like that. I just remember it being more so comedic and maybe joking around and
Yeah,
just maybe from a comedy vantage point, but even
right.
then, it's like when you look back on it and you're like, okay, well, what did we think was so funny? And it's like not that funny. So I don't think so. Not that I recall.
I'm always interested in people that have taken acid and haven't. I don't know. Did you have the oneness experience? I know you make fun of it a lot. I'm at one with the universe, and but have you ever experienced that yourself? That connection to all that is and beyond the self of Jay Dyer.
No, because the first trip was so bad and it was kind of an out of body experience that the
Right.
ones after that were much more tame and much more, like I said, kind of silly and more like
Mm.
a comedic, like watching a comedy movie almost. I mean, I don't remember any profound insight. I remember maybe listening to Enigma CD in one of the trips, and at the end, I was kind of tripped out from uh, the second, first or second. I know it's the second Enigma CD, but I don't remember any profound insights. They weren't particularly negative. I mean, I remember joking around about going to Memphis, and that was kind of scary, but scary in a funny way. So again, I don't, but I don't remember any mystical feeling of oneness. No,
I
it
feel
was much more
like
comedic. Is all I can think of.
right. I feel like orthodoxy is probably the most psychedelic adjacent of maybe all of the organized religions, if not definitely Christianity. I feel is definitely that's why I got into the content so much, and I find so many people that follow my content. Like a lot of people in my experience go into the psychedelic experience lost, whether they're
Yeah,
unconsciously at the bottom of the pit of their life, or by virtue of an accident at a festival, they have
yeah,
an out of body
right.
experience or something.
Yeah.
But it always leads to confusion. A lot of them say they're running into demons, and I think it's a projection of self, honestly. But demons, nonetheless, right? Perception is
Mhm.
reality, and so a lot of times they end up going through the door of Christianity, and a lot of them seem to filter most resonant with the orthodoxy. And so that's why for years I've been following your content and David's content and a
Yeah.
few other people with great interest, because you're also like huge in the Orthodox community too.
Yeah, I think that's
At least
an interest. You're right on that. That's an interesting insight. Maybe the aesthetics of orthodoxy via iconography is something that kind of people who are into psychedelics vibe with. Maybe that's kind of an entryway. But also, I think the philosophy of orthodoxy is kind of like the idea of an immediate experience. Like we're shooting for the direct experience of God versus a lot of other approaches to Christianity, world religions. They're not really shooting for that. So that might be why. I mean, there is something to that though, because DPH was in that scene. I did a interview a couple of years ago with your mate Tom, and I thought he was, he came really close to orthodoxy. I think he's still in the psychedelic sphere, but he was really close to converting as well. And I've met a lot of people over the last 6 years that were, pretty big in both the rave scene and the psychedelic scene that became orthodox. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that is, except the two things I mentioned as overlaps.
Well, as an outsider, I feel like it's the closest to the truth, right? Studying all religions and trying to see where they all kind of line up. What's the truth in terms of what Christianity's offering? I feel like, yeah, Orthodoxy is.
Well, let me ask you a question
truth.
on that. Yeah, let me ask you on that, because so like from your vantage point, like what makes Orthodoxy seem more appealing than say like Hinduism or something like that?
Well, I know from my experience, I feel like we all have what Christ did in us as a possibility, or maybe down the line we are all supposed to be like that, and He's teaching us through example the way to live, right? To ultimately achieve that. And there's arguments for and against that. There's people that say he went to India in those missing years and picked up all those Eastern philosophies and brought them back to the Jews. I don't know. That's why I'm always asking, and I'm always acting from direct experience, which is why the psychedelics, it's like, okay, well, they're taking me somewhere, and it's obviously outside of this five sense dimension at a minimum. So what is it? So I'm just exploring that. But no, I think it's closest to the truth. I think in terms of the preservation of the events that happen to today, and the adultery that goes on between with the church and the different kind of things break off, and there's different ways of interpreting the different languages. I feel like it's probably the closest, the purest in terms of like, as a historian looking at it that way. That's why I say, and it just resonates on a just pure feeling as probably the closest.
Yeah. I was just curious what made you feel that way, but yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
But like I said, so many people that they come out of the psychedelic experience basically lost, and they usually end up converting to Christianity because they've experienced something outside of their normal acting consciousness prior to the psychedelic experience that they can't explain. And of course, when they encounter demons or what they perceive as demons, they definitely start to say, okay, well, maybe the Bible is true after all.
Yeah, I think we call that the noetic realm. That's kind of what we mean by the spiritual realm. This idea that when you're outside of the body, after death or whatever, you're encountering that same plane or dimension or whatever word you want to use.
Astral.
Sure. Yeah. Same idea. Spiritual realm.
Because
we would say it's populated by different types of. There's demons there. There's angels there. There's other human beings, spirits. So it's kind of a populous realm, you could say.
I talked to a guy that had done DMT close to 1,000 times, and he basically says the astral plane, that same area you're talking about, is where you're pulling a lot of these. You're pulling the DMT experience from, and then that's relative to your state of being. So if you're in a low state of being, you're pulling into the demonic realm. If you're in a higher state of being, you're pulling into the angelic.
Yeah, I think that's the same for us. Like the vices that you engage in, the evil that you choose, kind of determines like the frequency that you're interacting with. Right. So if you're a wicked person, when you have that type of experience, you're going to be resonating with beings in that frequency that are wicked. So yeah, I think so. I also think too that like the way we don't really know how all this works, but it seems like the spiritual realm, like it's able to present to individual people in their inner state the way that they perceive things. So for example, somebody's raised in a tribe that worships the moon god, but thinks that fire god is the evil god, like the demonic will appear to them as like the fire god, right? So so I think that there's an element of subjectivity and relativity when it comes to the way that the entities present themselves or the forms that they present themselves as, but that ultimately whatever masks are being used, it's the same essential mythology. And I don't mean that in a fake sense, but it's in a story sense, it's the same mythos that the Bible's presenting. So like tribes that are interacting with these demonic entities, like that is identical to the demonic entities being described in the Bible. They're just presenting themselves under the guise relevant to that culture and that tribe. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So do you believe the devil exists as a physical entity or more like a archetype or idea?
Well, I wouldn't say he's a physical
Like
entity, but I think he's a
like
spiritual.
there's no literal devil that lives down
No,
in
I think there
Antarctica
is.
or
I
something.
think there is an actual spiritual entity that exists. Yes. So, for example,
that is
go ahead.
like biblically he runs the earth. Like, they say Satan controls the air and is the
Well, it
prince of
isn't.
this world.
He doesn't literally control the air, but it means that when it says that the world or it means the fallen world system that's under his control. So it's not. It would be his kingdom is all of the people that serve him and all of the angels that fell with him. So 1/3 of the angels fell. They serve with him, and that's who the demons are, is these entities.
I had an interesting talk with this guy, Old World Florida, Dr. Narco Longo. Have you ever heard of him?
Uh-uh.
Wait, okay. So anyway, he's got all this evidence that says that the Ark of the not the Ark of the Covenant, the Noah's Ark was built in the Panhandle of Florida because it's the only place in the world with gopher wood. He's got all these other things, and it's a compelling theory. Long story short, all of the pre-flood world takes place in the North American continent, specifically the American South. And then the flood happens, and then it ends up over there in the Middle East, right? So we're now in this post-Babylonian system. We're in the Babylonian system. You would agree, yeah?
I think
and that's run by Satan on a spiritual level.
Yeah, I think you could say that the Babylon, Egypt world system, etc., is spiritually what we're under. Yeah, but I don't have any. I mean, it seems kind of a little speculative out there. Like, I don't think a lot of that stuff we really know much about, like how it was before the flood and all that. I mean, I think there were these antediluvian civilizations, but I just don't know, who was there, what was going on. We get kind of like these little glimpses in scripture, but not a whole lot of information.
Oh yeah. So you do believe in Atlantis then, potentially?
I think Atlantis was real. I mean, there seems to be enough evidence from Plato and other sources that there was this place. What exactly was going on there, I'm not sure. I mean, Plato doesn't really describe it as like flying saucers or anything like that. It's just kind of like a concentric circle city with like moats and circles, and they were very proficient at war, and that's how Plato describes it. That doesn't seem far-fetched to me.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you believe the same thing I believe about aliens, which is they're not ET, they're angels and demons, right?
Yeah, I think they're terrestrial beings. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what? So, do you think Greys from Zeta Reticuli exist?
No.
No. Are those men in costumes or what?
Well, I mean, there might be
or the demons on the physical plane. Yeah.
There might be entities that manifest. I mean, we would say that angels and demons have the ability to make an appearance. So that might be what's going on with this phenomenon when people talk about it. I think also people describe their sleep paralysis experiences, and they see these things. I mean, people see shadow people, this kind of stuff. So, it could be just a phenomenon of a manifestation of something in the spiritual realm that's not necessarily a biological being. There could be some sort of cryptid being that we don't know about. I don't think that's probably not true, but I mean, I don't know. But no, I think it's like a spiritual manifestation. I mean, spiritual things, I believe, can manifest in time and space.
Sure.
That's my view.
So lizard people, physical reality, or more of like a interdimensional overlay?
I would say more like an interdimensional demon, if that's manifesting at any point.
Right. Have you ever encountered a lizard person?
No. But I mean,
What are your
scripture
thoughts
talks about,
on?
like in scripture, it says that Satan, when it says he was a serpent, it's talking about an angelic being. It's not talking about like a literal snake. So Satan appeared in the garden under the guise or the form of a serpent. The word that's used is a fiery serpent. So in other words, like an angelic manifestation. So in the same way, Paul talks about in the book of Acts, he meets a girl who's possessed with what's called in the Greek, it says it's a pythonic spirit. So I think that there are these there's different types of demons, different types of entities. So I think that's real. And I think a lot of people are mistaking aliens for that kind of stuff.
Well, that's one of my big takeaways from the psychedelic experience is the whatever these entities are, right? Machine. No, you've never done DMT, have you?
I have
Or have you?
No, I haven't. Just
Have
I did see some things on acid, but no, never mushrooms or anything else.
It's funny. I was listening to the podcast you did about altered states, your review, and
Oh yeah.
machine. You posted it on my birthday. It was cool, July 5th, 2020. I was like,
That's
oh,
funny.
that was a nice synchronicity. Do you have a lot of synchronicity in your life?
Yeah, we have pretty.
I imagine you do.
Yeah.
Thanks for reposting some of the memes. That's always fun to get a Jay Dyer repost.
Yeah, man. I've seen your stuff on Instagram a lot for the past several years. So yeah,
Oh yeah, I was like, it was a big moment. I'm like, oh, Jay Dyer's a fan. This is great. Like I said, I've been a huge fan for a while, and
well, I'd say
like,
yeah, I've seen you too on there for a while, and you post some funny stuff. So, um, so yeah, I think that's a much better explanation for a lot of the stuff is the story that we get in scripture, and I think there are these antediluvian civilizations. I just don't know how to go about cashing that out or proving it, or it's just all super speculative. So I just kind of stick with more so with what can be proven.
any benefits to marijuana? Are you a fan or no? I would imagine you are.
No, I think there is a lot of benefits to medicinal THC use. So
Well,
I
that's
think
good.
all of these things have their purpose and they were given for a reason. But they shouldn't be abused. And, I mean, anything every argument that a person would make against alcohol is essentially equivalent to, medicinal THC.
Cool. So, but you're not. You don't seem like you seem way too into like research to be stoned. I can't imagine you smoke at all.
I'm not interested in being stoned. No, I don't. I'm not into that. I'm just saying that I'm a supporter of medicinal uses of that. So
right.
I'm not.
Right.
I don't drink. I'm not a party guy. And yeah, we spend most of our time, doing research and analysis. So no. I mean, I quit partying like in my 20s.
You would have been a good attorney. You ever consider going into law?
My mom tried to talk me into that one time. She was like, you'd be a good lawyer. You're good at debating. And I was like, oh, sounds like a terrible job. A lawyer.
You're good. Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm a lot more of a right brain person than you think. Like I would rather be,
I know you're a singer and a comedian too.
Well, so-called. I gave myself.
I like the songs, and one of my Pay Piggy song is the favorite one.
Thank you.
That's good.
I mean, I'd rather be making joke songs than doing anything else. But I like to do these other things too.
You're a really good impressionist. You have one of the best Terrence McKenna impressions I've ever heard. I die every time.
Well, thank you. I'd like to see a young man sitting in front of a large toilet talking into a small white ball.
That's funny. And your Osho is really good too.
Oh,
you get the whistle.
People are retarded.
Yeah, you have you ever consider stand up? You're so close to almost doing it now.
We do at our live events. Yeah, we actually the last year we did 6 or 7 live events, and I integrated a lot more. I do like a whole 10-15 minute comedy.
I was gonna say you have so much material, over the years you could just dip into anything.
Yeah, it's a lot of impressions. I kind of compacted a bunch of impressions into about 10 or 15 minutes.
Let me ask you this: are all the players like McKenna and Leary and John Lilly, were there any of those guys good at all? Because people get mad at me because I tell them McKenna got busted and then he became a CIA asset. I don't even know if that's true, but I've read that a bunch of times. Do you think that these guys were all compromised and pushing agendas, or was there any just living their truth and this is what they became, or they unnaturally like pushed by the system?
That's a good question. I think of the guys you listed, they all seem to be pretty much establishment promoted mouthpiece type persons. I'm sure that there are some people amongst that boomer era that were trying to be sincere that weren't part of that. But Leary, John C. Lilly, I mean, those guys were straight up MK Ultra guys. McKenna seems to be a little more a little more enigmatic, but at least what he eventually ended up promoting was completely the establishment line. So maybe there was a time period where he was. I don't know. I haven't followed his career that much. I just kind of go by what's in the books, and I read a couple of his books, and I read Leary and Lily's book, and I don't get anything authentically anti-establishment there. I just get a lot of the next phase of where they wanted to take things, I think, and we see that in Changing Images of Man, these kind of establishment promoted white papers that talked about where they wanted to take everything. So I don't think of those dudes that they were really anti-establishment. I can't think of, I don't know of any. I mean, maybe some of the singers in the counterculture were authentically.
Well, I mean, look at Morrison. He was born where I'm from, but he's as manufactured as he gets, right? With his dad and
exactly.
In the military.
If you read Dave McGowan stuff, that's what you come away with.
Yeah. Wow. Nothing. That's the bummer is to find out that none of these things were organic. That they were potentially artificially pushed, and these people that you maybe classify as free thinkers and heroes in a limited sense of psychedelics were nothing more.
Yeah, I mean, Time magazine was pushing the psychedelic revolution at the very beginning on the cover of Life magazine with they put Gordon Wasson on the cover, and Time Life magazine was the publication of Henry Luce and the CIA. He was Skull and Bones. It was a long time, American to CIA mouthpiece. So, if they really wanted to shut that down, if they were opposed to it, they wouldn't have plastered it and promoted it everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Where are you at these days?
What do you mean?
What city?
I live in Florida and in Tennessee, so we kind of go back and forth between both.
I'm from Florida too. That's cool. So if I was to set up a float for you at any location, wherever you're at, that's why I asked.
A float?
Would you be open to? Yeah.
What is that?
Jump in the float tanks. The sensory deprivation. How much do you actually know about floating?
Oh no, I just read the John C. Lilly stuff on it. I haven't ever done it.
Well, it's super therapeutic. You're laying in 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt heated to your skin's temperature, about 93.5 degrees. You're laying there naked, weightless. It's so on just the physical level alone, it's worth every second of it, because you come out of there looking 10 years younger from all the stress you've dropped off your whole body, your lymphatic system, and then you got that your skin soaking in all that Epsom salt. You're putting maybe a half a pound when you're getting a bath. This is 1,000 pounds. It's so yeah. If you're open to it, you won't be MK Ultra. You won't do it long enough. An hour is not going to do anything but make you feel amazing. Every time I need to recharge, I go floating. So I'll have to. If you,
I appreciate the offer. Maybe down the road one day I'll do that, but
yeah,
not right now.
Well, I always try to offer to people because it is supremely therapeutic.
I'll look into it. Yeah, appreciate that.
I'm surprised that somebody in this world of, because you are on the fringes here with the conspiracy stuff, the esoteric, even the religion and the spirituality. You ride the fringes. I consider myself on the fringe, and you're like right there in my wheelhouse. So appreciate
it. Is and it is. I feel like it is on the fringe, but then a lot of the day-to-day, what we do is pretty normal. It's not that crazy. Like, I mean, we do travel around to do live events, which is fun and kind of exciting, but most of the time is spent doing pretty mundane things like reading and going to church. So it's like it's not actually that fringe of a lifestyle, so to speak.
You ever seen Waking Life?
Yes, Tristan and I did a whole podcast breakdown of that.
That's one of my favorite psychedelic movie recommendations.
Yeah, you like that?
Oh yeah, and Alex Jones is in it. So
Yeah,
it's
Alex is
double.
in it. Yeah, I like Richard Linklater films. Are pretty good. In fact, we just did a. I'd never seen his some of his other things like Before Sunrise. That was interesting. Kind of captures the Gen X mindset. But yeah, we did Scanner Darkly and that one maybe 2 years ago. But yeah, it's a very bizarre series of vignettes in that rotoscope style. But I think the PKD section is pretty neat. Um, Ethan Hawke pops up in that too, kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like he
Oh
overlaps a
yeah,
lot
that's
of
the
those.
same style as
Yeah,
Scanner Darkly. That same
right.
artistic style. Yeah,
Yeah.
PKD is was he a natural phenomenon or was he another plant pushing elite agenda?
I don't think he was pushing. I think he was a
He
real.
was a
I think he was an
yeah.
authentic dude trying to make sense of all the crazy stuff that's going on, and I think he got a little too out there, and maybe he talked about too much. Even who knows? But I don't. I mean, I don't agree with his sort of Gnostic view, but I think he seemed to be on like an authentic person, not a shill to me.
Because that's what I'm always looking for now in my content creators and media I'm consuming is what are they shilling for? Who's
Yeah,
being honest?
yeah.
And that's why I resonate with your stuff a lot. It's really good. It's really honest.
Thanks.
And like I said, it's not stuff you're gonna get every day on the mainstream at all by
Right.
a long shot. Like the white paper stuff and the
Yeah,
breakdown
exactly.
of these movies. Great stuff. Everybody's got to check them out. So I have one more question. Why
Sure.
orthodoxy? What brought you into that space? And then we'll close it out here.
Well, I was raised Baptist. So I thought that at a certain point, Baptist is kind of inadequate for answering a lot of questions. The more I went into history, so I started reading the church fathers and all that, and I kind of read my way out of that when I was 23. But I didn't really know about Orthodox yet. I just know about Catholic versus Protestant. So spent several years kind of in that debate, going back and forth. Ended up becoming Catholic in 2003, around in there, and then I did that for about 10 years. And I think if you live that ethos and you try to understand that
Mm-hmm.
system, it's a very very easily puts itself into a bind by contradictions. And being somebody who's interested in analysis and coherence, after a while I just couldn't really make that system work, make it make sense. But I still was interested in the basic theology, the milieu of Orthodox Christianity that I was new to that in 2007. So I just, again, I took a long time reading and going deeper and deeper into the church fathers and all that. And I finally just decided that was the most consistent with the first 1,000 years of Christianity, with what I read in the Bible, with what I thought, the teaching of the church fathers was. So finally converted in 2017, I think.
Nice. Yeah. So you basically came to similar conclusions, which is the historical chain there is probably
Right.
the clearest and the truest. One more thing, you also taught me by listening to you a very important word called presupposition. Debating and stuff. I never understood debating styles, and I never got into that world. But listening to you, and that for a while there's some of those debates. One of the big words always was presuppose, presupposition, and you've got to have that right to get the argument on fair playing grounds. Yeah, am I getting it right?
Yeah, I mean, really,
We're gonna.
yeah, this just goes back to the origins of Western philosophy with Socrates, right? When Socrates is walking around in Plato's Apology, he's basically doing a kind of presuppositional critique. He's asking people, why they believe what they believe, why do they think what they think. And so, philosophy comes out of that whole attitude of like asking fundamental questions, questioning fundamental assumptions. And that's really all we're doing in Presup, is questioning our fundamental assumptions. And most people who go into discussions to debate or argue have never actually questioned their assumptions. So that's why it's a very
Right.
potent, very powerful approach to debate and argumentation, because it takes a lot of people off guard. And particularly when it comes to these more heated dogmatic, arguments about theology, most people also have not questioned those presuppositions, even if they're atheists, right? So that's why it's a very bold tactical move. But it's not just a bold tactic. It's also kind of hitting at like really fundamental ideas about how our belief systems are structured in terms of our, most fundamental commitments. So that's what we're investigating and looking at.
Well, I'm glad you fleshed that out even more, because I just assumed it was like we just got to be on the same page before we can even start arguing about something. If we're not even, like agreeing on the definition of a term.
Well,
a meeting of the minds.
Yeah, it's always helpful to do that, but a lot of times in a formal debate setting, or if you have a really hardcore opponent, like they're not going to care about any of that. So you kind of have to go for basically you're knocking the foundations out from under everything is what you're doing,
right,
in that approach.
Another thing you killed for me was my love of the multiverse, realizing it's just subjective postmodern gobbledygook.
Yeah, if we lose the law of identity and these kinds of things, which is really multiverse would undercut the law of identity, then we really can't have knowledge of anything at all. It pretty much undercuts all predication or the ability to say anything about things. So I think that's a pretty devastating critique of multiverse theory.
Well, yeah, there's no objective good, right? I mean, it's just a sliding scale of subjectivity. It sounds like hell.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, man. Well, what are we promoting tonight? Just the same old, the website, the YouTube,
Well, we have a live event.
You got something new
in Las Vegas.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll be live in Vegas with some of our comedy friends like Jim Bob, my conspiracy buddy Isaac Weishaupt, Illuminati Watcher, will be there giving a talk. His talk's on Eyes Wide Shut. My wife's talk is on Hollywood witchcraft. My talk is on geopolitics and sexpionage.
Nice.
So yeah, get the tickets on my if you're in the Vegas or Utah, LA, Nevada area, whatever, Arizona area, get your tickets over on my Twitter on my Eventbrite link.
Where are you guys doing this at in Vegas?
I just rented a venue. I forget the name of
it.
It's like a little 100-person theater.
Have you been there since they opened up the Sphere?
I have not. No, I was there in 2014. 14 was last
time. You're in for a treat. That's something to behold.
Sounds, yeah. Everybody talks about it. Yeah.
Cool.
Also got other books too at the website. If people want my philosophy.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
Got the meta narrative philosophy text that people can get at my website in the shop.
Awesome. Well, the website is jaysanalysis.com. You go on Twitter, J_D007, Instagram, Jay's Analysis, Rockfin, Jay Dyer, TikTok, Jay Dyer. And then I guess there's an athletic coach, which is also named Jay Dyer.
And that is not
it up. I'm like, no,
correct.
Oh, he's competing.
I'm also not the black dude that does screenplays. So,
well, didn't get that far down Google, but yeah, definitely go check Jay out. He's kept me entertained for years. I've learned so much and continue to learn. Go check him out in Vegas. And thanks again for coming on the Float Universe.
Hey man, I was honored. A great conversation. Appreciate it.
Likewise, you are enlightened. I'll see you online.
All right, later, dude. Bye.
Later.